Welcome to the Manufacturers Jumpstart Your E-commerce Business webinar presented by Object Edge and Elastic Path. Your expert presenters today are Darren Archer, Chief Strategy Officer of Elastic Path, and Rohit Garwal, President Object Edge. We know your time is valuable and we appreciate your investment with us today. Just a couple of things. We will be sending a recording to everyone after this webinar. Please put your questions into the Q&A as they come up. Our experts are happy to take a look at them and will direct and adjust the webinar according to the attendees on our webinar today. Thank you very much again for participating. And now your experts. Darren, take it away.
Thank you, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Those of you dialing into this webinar live, and for those of you that will watch it later at some time in the future, hopefully that time in the future has some better moments than these moments today. So to kick off here, what we wanted to do today as I get things going with all of our challenges. There we go. This is probably the biggest cliche we could have came up with. Times have changed. We've used this in so many times in my life in presentations, and we talk about the disruptions of technology and the things happening in the industry, and never has it probably popped off the page as much as it does today. But we know that in reality, the last few weeks and this year, it's going to be a radically different way of doing business, and all of us have to accommodate some of these new challenges and new constraints that we're going to be working with. Because our shoppers, whether the traditional B2C type shoppers or the B2B buyers that may be doing both, buying on their own behalf to get groceries in their house or to fill their pantries and closets, or switching gears and alt-tabbing, so to speak, to some of their work purchases and making purchases on behalf of their business. These expectations and how we accommodate them have really shifted. The other challenge that we have with this digital channel now is that in many cases the backup plan was something that could easily accommodate. Shane, could you just switch slides for me? The activities that we have going on now. So if you think about right now what you're facing, and many of us have some immediate needs where you may have an existing e-commerce program to facilitate or supplement some of your channel, some of your sales force, and some of you may have that as a primary. And we'll pop a poll up in a little bit to gauge that. But some of you may not have anything yet, or you may have something that's quite nascent. And so now you're in this moment where your plan is to either double down on the program that you have going, or accelerate an initiative to get e-commerce up and running. And so the question really is, some of you that are new to this, you may have heard some horror stories. These programs and projects can take, months and quarters and years. And some of you that may have lived through the past may have had similar experiences. But one of the things we want to talk about today and really challenge is that there has been some advances in technologies, in some platforms that have made things a lot easier, a lot faster. And so as you use some of these purpose-built tools for today, you can accomplish things that are actually measured in days and weeks, which clearly will help for the right now. Advanced slide, Shannon. So where do you begin? Well, as I mentioned, the idea here is that we want to break things down and talk about how you can get going fast. Because some of you literally may be tuning in this webinar from a different discipline, different department. You may not have an e-commerce experience, and you have been just given one of these mandates to, quickly take that e-commerce store that someone was running, that it maybe even is no longer in the company, and figure out how to really ramp it up or to put something in place. You might today have your website with just some product information, but no ability to buy, no ability to add to cart. So, we need to put together some plans. And of course, you have to be thoughtful about how you begin this. There's potential impacts if you don't go into it with some thinking and, figuring out what your resources are going to be needed as, figuring out organizational changes, some of the dependencies between cross-functional teams that will have to support post-purchase, the order with your new customer relationship. But even factoring all these in and planning out all those traditional milestones, the big takeaway today, and what I'm really excited to introduce Ro Gerwal from Object Edge on, is to walk you through how you can get things going really fast, and you can do things in a way that allow you to step into this and start to solve some of the pain points that you may be experiencing this week right now and start to alleviate them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rohit to walk us through some of this journey.
Hey, thanks, Darren. Hey, Shannon, would you mind just handling the slides for me too? It'll probably be easier.
No problem.
Thank you. Hey guys, my name's Rohit. I've been working in some form of digital channel and digital commerce here for almost 20 years. And I'm going to take over from what Darren was talking about and how do we do this fast. But before we talk about how we do this fast, I think we should all align on what our common definition of success is. And hopefully, for most of us, the definition of success is simply meeting the needs of our customers and, if possible, exceeding them, as we're talking about our businesses. And in April 2020, that may mean rapidly adapting to having your sales teams grounded thanks to stay at home, or getting fast busy signals in your call center because people are just trying to get a hold of you to support their business. If you're a critical supplier of goods and services, or you're a critical manufacturer, our business realities today may be radically different than they were just 4 weeks ago. And I've been on the phone with all my customers probably 2-3 times a week, whether they be manufacturers, whether they be distributors, whether they be retailers, to understand what's happening today. So if you're on this call or on this webinar, hopefully what we're really trying to address is, hey, our definition of success is we need to meet the needs of our customers in April 2020. So then let's specifically talk about what success would look like in the context of e-commerce itself. So Darren was spot on when he was talking a little bit about what the broad understanding of costs are as you're watching this. And we're going to provide some guidelines and get into that details in a second. But if you're going to take away anything from today's webinar, I want you to start thinking differently about what launching a commerce channel and a digital channel for your customers really means. And that we need to start thinking about this in week-sized chunks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, not a year-large program or a 6-month program. Today, we need to start thinking about it differently. And we don't have to radically be coming up with experimental technologies to make this happen. The technologies exist today to make it happen. And we've been guiding our customers on this for months, if not years, of this new way of thinking. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, bite chunks out of your e-commerce problem. Now, traditional approaches, like we said, might take months or even years, right? And so what was the result? That you had to pan out a significant cost structure, a budget, and that budget meant you're probably prioritizing other high priority business takeaways or business goals. And so in today's climate, you can't really afford that luxury, right? We need to move quickly. And so there's no time to assemble your task force and come up with the long-term company roadmap of what commerce would ideally look like 18 months from now. Because the reality is, if we don't have something that can service our customers, remember that definition of success, meeting a customer's needs, we're already late. Success has got to be defined in this concept of like weeks. And I just want to be pragmatic about one thing. When we're talking about shifting your mindset from a year-long project to a 2-week project, an 8-week project, a 12-week project, we're not eliminating costs. We're just shifting them, right? And we're shifting them in bite-sized chunks so that you get more immediate ROI. And again, more importantly, your customers' needs are being met. All right. So if we're bought into, all right, is it possible to do 2-week, 4-week, 8-week, 12-week chunks out of e-commerce? I think we have to really get a handle on 3 things. There's going to be 3 core challenges that we're going to have to solve. Number 1, could you go to the next slide, Shannon, for me? Number 1, we're going to have to ruthlessly prioritize what those base experiences are going to be that we're going to launch to our customers. Number 2, we need to actually take a look at which customers we're going to actually launch to. You don't have to launch to everybody. We have the benefit of being manufacturers, distributors, retailers, where we can segment which customers we want to launch this channel to. And number 3, you're going to have to be operationally ready. All right, so we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go quickly through this. But if you have any questions, put them in the panelist questionnaire below, or just shoot me an email. So let's go bottom up, and let's start with being operationally ready. E-commerce, first off, is a legitimate channel of business. And that means you're going to have ongoing CapEx and OpEx expenses to run that channel. It's not a back office software package like ERP or HCM, where you have a large project, you install it, and then you forget about it. And I hate to break it to everyone, but e-commerce is not a net 50 business. What I mean by that is you're not going to be running net 50% margins on e-commerce. So distributors are typically running a 3 to 5% net operating margin business, and you guys do well on volume. Manufacturers are typically running a net 15% business, oftentimes 10%, and you're really working through your distributors and your direct customers. That means as you transition some of your revenue from your traditional channels to commerce in this day and age, your ratios are going to remain approximately the same in terms of the net operating margins of your business, but your cost structures might have to change as you run your channel. So we have to think about that as we're thinking about launching this channel quickly, but running it efficiently. So some good rules of thumb for you if you're a B2B e-commerce channel. Typical B2B e-commerce channels spend 10% of gross on OpEx, licensing, and infrastructure. For the sake of the entire conversation today, I'm not even going to talk about fulfillment because that's a whole different beast. So going back to your OpEx and your operational, that means if you're doing $10 million online today, you want to try to cap your spend at about $1 million on running your store. And if you're doing 50 million, you're limiting it to 5. Now, like anything, there's a floor. So if you're brand new on e-commerce, you should still plan on spending probably about 2 FTEs, that's 2 full-time employees, running your commerce and to do things like development support. Like if something breaks, someone's going to have to fix it. Development enhancements to the channel to improve the experience, make some of the manual processes automated, documenting your enhancements, testing, infrastructure and maintenance, analytics. That sounds a lot of work to do in 320 hours a month, but you can get lean and squeeze by. But that is going to be most likely your floor. So now we have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to stop right there in operations. But again, write some questions in. And if you have questions on this, we'll definitely address it. All right, going up on our list, the customers you're going to choose. I really recommend doing a low fidelity type segmentation of your customer base if you haven't done it already, and figure out which of the customers that you're going to launch to. And this is what I'd recommend. Look at your high spend, low work customers, the guys that spend a lot with you but are relatively easy. And then also look at your customers that are relatively low spend but require a lot of work. You're going to want to go somewhere in the middle of here, people that spend like middle of the pack, but also are kind of low maintenance, low work. These are the guys that do a lot of reorders, don't have complex orders, maybe aren't doing custom manufactured SKUs, they're doing off-the-shelf SKUs. That's who we want to launch commerce to first. And lastly, when we talk about what experiences you want to launch with, you're going to need a basic buy flow so people can find your products and buy and add them to a cart. You're going to need some sort of payment and quote capture. You're going to want to be able to show the receipt and invoices so people understand what they bought. And you're going to want to easily be able to take questions through this new digital channel, whether it be a phone number where they can call you, or a chat, or an email. All right, so those are the 3 challenges: figuring out what experience we launch with, what customers are going to launch to, and being operationally ready. That's a really high level look, but I want to take a quick step back. And for all of you guys that are on the webinar, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to pop up a poll question. And the poll question I'd like to ask you guys is, where do you guys think you are right now in your commerce maturity curve? We're going to cater the rest of the conversation around this. So do you think you're not selling online at all today and you need to launch quick? Do you think you're just beginning the journey and you're looking for some tips and tricks on how do you get this thing operational in a good way? Or are you a guru and seasoned veteran? Those are going to be your 3 choices. So Shannon, if you don't mind popping that poll up, we can take a look at how people are responding and we can cater it after this.
Sorry, can people see the polling? No. One sec, I'll just relaunch it because that's not.
And while we're waiting on that, I know I was going through that stuff really fast. And hopefully you guys weren't having to furiously write down those notes. We will be sending out the webinar in a slide format to all of you, and it should have some of these numbers in there. And again, we're always going to be available to take emails, or you can write the questions into the the chat Q&A.
Okay, so the polling was launched. I'm not sure why people aren't seeing it. I'll give it one more shot here. Relaunch it. And for whatever reason, the polling is launched, and I wish I had an explanation for this. I apologize.
So Pauline, on the question, I saw you ask a question here. It's worth repeating the last 5 minutes. Could you clarify? Are you talking about those numbers I just I put out there on the operational side?
I think she just means it was real fast. So let's keep going so we can, get through some of this content, and then I think you can probably return to it. And as we get back into the Q&A, we can summarize. You had some nice summaries, Rohit, of some prioritization items to think about, and we can cover it.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to assume then, I'm going to regress to the mean and say some of us, we've all got some sort of experience in e-commerce, even though it might not be superstar status, and it's not, I've never seen it before. So let's just take that as regress to the mean, and we should be able to cover quite a bit of the content then. All right. So going back to, we're in the reality today. You're getting fast busy signals, your sales force is grounded, and whether you're a manufacturer or a distributor, potentially even a retailer, you need to get your customers access to your products so that you can get inventory out of your factories, out of your warehouses, into the hands of your customer. FedEx, UPS, all the delivery channels are still open to you. So there still is a viable business to be had. We just need to get it in front of them. So when you're talking about getting a viable store out in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, we're really talking about having a balance of features, automation, and time. I want to talk about what that means. Features, automation, and time. So if you're going to be launching a site in 2 weeks, what we're really talking about is you're going to have to launch with a really well thought through, but still template on top of an enterprise class commerce platform. So when I say template, what I mean by that is it's going to have all your features ready built out of the box with a user experience that your customers are really going to know and love, because typically most templates have done some sort of heuristic design where they've thought through the use cases and they've thought through how are people going to access it. You also want a template because you don't want to take all the time of doing design studies and user research studies, even though I think those are valuable down the road. Up front, again, we're just trying to launch quickly. It's April 2020, Salesforce grounded, fast busy signals on your call centers. So you're going to launch with that template, but you're also going to want this on a thought through enterprise grade platform, because I do a lot of work on Shopify, Magento. We've used all these platforms before, and I think they're phenomenal. I love the disruption they cause. However, we have to be really careful in that, like, remember what we talked about earlier? You're deferring your costs and you're spreading your costs out. You aren't eliminating them. So now what Shopify and all these platforms pioneered was be able to launch quickly. And the enterprise class platforms, which were historically very feature rich, data model rich, now are catching up and are also able to provide those same type of rapid deployment experiences. And so you want to make sure that whatever platform you're choosing to launch these template experiences on, hey, have the right data models for you. So down the road, if you've got different price lists for different customers, if you're consuming 8 different catalogs from 8 different manufacturers, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to support that down the road. You might not need to support that right up front in that first 2 weeks, but you want to make sure you can support it down the road. So that's why I'm saying pick the right template for you and then pick the right e-commerce platform for you. And you can do that now very, very quickly. So that's on the balancing features. Automation. Look, every commerce platform and every commerce experience needs data. You're going to need a catalog, you're going to need descriptions, you're going to need pricing, inventory, payment, blah, 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 blah. We know that. Here's the big thing though that you can really start thinking through. Now you can start loading those things manually. If you have to run and you have to get up and running quickly, your customers are going to give you leniency that everything's not buttoned up and everything's not perfect. It's a lot better than what's happening right now, that they can't get a hold of you and they can't buy your product. So in that sense, we can work through this conversation of, okay, let me load my catalog manually. If I need to add new products, then it's an Excel upload. I've got a nightly inventory that I export from my ERP system and I upload it via an Excel file every night. It doesn't take that long. I've got pricing. If my pricing needs to change every night, I just do it nightly. You can even create a disclaimer on the top of your site. Hey guys, look, we're rapidly trying to adapt to the realities of today. Please give me a little bit of leniency. My pricing might be a little off. We can have these conversations. We can be real with our customers. Again, it's better than what we have today. That said, it's still a much better experience, right? We're not talking about that you're just slapping together a catalog online. We're just saying that you have to manually upload them in a template and an experience that is pretty well defined. And then finally, time. So if you're okay with launching with a really good template that provides all the user experiences that your clients might need, and you're okay with less automation, maybe some more Excel uploads, you can launch in 2 weeks. But maybe you say, you know what, my business is just critical. I cannot have the wrong pricing. I'll go out of business if the pricing's wrong. Okay, well then just take an extra week and maybe build the integration just to your pricing, but still have the other stuff as an Excel speed. And then you have a plan, a roadmap. Every 2 weeks, I'm going to bring a new feed as an automation. So it takes you through the next 2 weeks and the next 3 weeks of everyone staying at home. And then 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, you start getting back to normal. And then you start making those investments to get back to normal in automation in a staggered way. So you start seeing the ROI when you need it. So again, I'm going to pause right there. And I don't know if we want to check to see if the polling's working yet again. Otherwise, we see some questions and maybe we can take a pause, Darren, and answer some of these questions.
So let's keep going because I want to get to the demo. We're already running a little,
okay.
A little slow.
So Shannon, the polling, we'll just skip it for right now.
So go to the next.
All right.
Next slide, Shannon.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Rowan, let me chime in here for a second. So, listening to you, and I love how you're breaking down how to be thoughtful about capabilities that you may want in the future, but recognizing that you can get started pretty quickly. If someone on the other side of this right now is a manufacturer that is in that situation that you described, where they haven't had an e-commerce experience for their B2B customers, and perhaps they've just traditionally taken phone orders, or they've had sales reps entering it directly into their ERP system. They may even still be collecting faxes for reorders, etc. I think most of them have a website today. I mean that they've everyone's progressed to, and many even have a good amount of product catalog information available on the website. They can, they're showing their product details and even pricing sometimes, but it's that lack of transactional capability. Talk a little bit, tell me about that idea of how you can just kind of step into this. I think, you even mentioned that it might be for just certain customers or for just certain products. How might one kind of step into this in the fastest way possible?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Look, at the end of the day, it's about having that template, it's about having a platform, and it's about launching quickly. So, for example, and maybe we can just show something here real quick. I'll ask Dalen to show something that would be viable. We're trying to get a buy button. So if you have a CMS already, right, where maybe it's WordPress or you've got something out there that can show your products, maybe it's about just getting a buy button on that CMS, right? Connecting it to something like Stripe, collecting a payment, and boom, now at least you've got something moving. We're trying to move the needle in the positive direction. So it could be as simple as just getting a buy button on a CMS. It could all the way go to, all right, let me just grab a platform, something like an Elastic Path. Let me put a template on there like Jumpstart, and let me load a catalog in. So if I don't have a CMS, or I don't like the way the CMS doesn't have any product information, it just has FAQs and whatnot, you can go and find a platform, find a template like Jumpstart, and then just load in your catalog and then have a fully baked experience launched. So I think with that, Dalen, if you don't mind, we'll switch to you. I think this would be a lot easier if people can imagine what kind of thing they could launch with in 2 weeks if they're leveraging a template. And then maybe after that demo, we can talk through, all right, maybe if you don't need a template and you don't need an e-commerce platform, you just want a buy button, what are some options in just adding the buy button to your existing WordPress or CMS?
Excellent. Yes, thank you, Rohit. Hi, everyone. So I think it would really help to show you some visuals so you can think more concretely about how you can take week-sized bites out of e-commerce like Darren and Rohit have been discussing. What you're looking at here is something you can imagine to launch in a couple of weeks, as long as the B2B platform you buy has ready-made templates. In this case, we're looking at EP with a Jumpstart template, but there are more for EP and other platforms are now doing the same. This template is more focused on shopping. But depending on your needs, you can also look for templates that focus on other things, like self-service. When you launch with a template, the content and images you see are placeholders, but the features are fully built out. In theory, starting tomorrow, you could load your catalog with your SKU numbers, prices, descriptions, and images, and literally within a couple of minutes, you'd have a fully set up store. The key you would have to be okay with to launch so quickly, as Rohit and Darren were talking about, is that most of the loads would be done manually. In the case of this template, a manual loads means an Excel file. You would also want to speak with an expert on how to craft your business processes to handle these manual processes. Again though, the thought here is to launch quickly with something customers love. This is where templates and modern headless platforms like EP can really help. Now let's start looking at some of the B2B template features that you could potentially launch within 2 weeks, so you can start applying these thoughts to your own business. Instead of going through a typical B2C experience, you're going to want to look for templates that support more B2B buy flows, like the quick order form. Here, your customers should be able to leverage experience like predictive search to find products either by name, or SKU. And quickly add multiple items to the quote or cart. This type of feature would work regardless of whether you manually load your products or have some type of automated feed. Once your customers have quickly added their products, you could have them go directly to the cart where they could update or remove items, continue shopping, request a quote, or go directly to checkout. Now in the template that I am showing, there are multiple levels of buyers. Generally, you wouldn't have that if you launched in a couple of weeks. This is something you would typically launch in week 6. The reason again is data. Your first 2 weeks would be spent in getting your catalog in, whereas over the next few weeks, you would work on getting other data like customer hierarchies organized and loaded in. So imagining that you had your customer hierarchy in, from here, non-admin level buyers would be prompted to select from pre-existing shipping and billing addresses. Users with administrative access who may want to see an address that they're not preloaded can hit the Add a New Address button to take them to the Accounts Management page with an expanded address form. In the 2-week version of the store, all customer logins could have access to changing addresses, like in B2C. Or you could elect for no one to have access, and it would be done in the back end. Again, it's a choice between features, data, and time. In the 6-week version of the sites, user with administrative access may add or edit existing users. Same with the company addresses for default shipping and default billing, and basic company information. It should also be very simple for users to be able to handle their own account settings, like their name, email, and password. Back at the checkout, your customer can go ahead and finish this order. Right now, this is out of stock. We can go back to our view cart, remove this item, and continue with our flow. Users will be prompted that their order has been placed successfully and given a quick readout of the pertinent order information. From here, users can either choose to continue shopping or view their orders. In the 2-week version of the site, look for templates that have pre-connected payment gateways such as Stripe. You can use tools like Stripe for getting cash into your accounts quickly. Down the road, once you have more features loaded in, you can integrate with your clearinghouse of choice. If you want ACH in the first release or two, be prepared to collect ACH account information on the website, but then receive some sort of secure email where you will enter the account information manually to complete the payment. Again, in week 6 or 12, you could have something like this fully automated. The orders page aggregates all of the orders placed by the user in a way that's easy to sort through. Customers should be able to search for an order either by order number. I'll just type out the first one I see. Or SKU. They should also be able to quickly access order details. Some additional functionality. Should they need to return an order or speak to a representative? And associated invoices, which are also aggregated in their own landing page, making them easy to sort by or search for. In the 2-week version of the site, you should make it clear to your customers that they can only see orders that they placed on the site. You should plan to have your historical orders loaded from other systems around the 12-week mark. The last thing we can look at is a great self-service feature like viewing and paying invoices. Since this is a more advanced B2B feature, you should only expect to see invoices at the 2-week point, specifically only invoices for orders placed on the site. Depending on how your back office is set up, you could potentially start seeing invoices for orders placed outside the system by week 6. Paying invoices requires more ERP integration, so I would recommend planning that for week 12 or 16. Again, with enterprise-level templates and e-commerce, the initial time that it takes to launch a store is not in adding more features or what people are calling experiences, but it's in automating the back-end data loads and helping operations so that your team spends less time working in the business and more time working on the business. I would strongly recommend you consult with those with a lot of e-commerce experience to help you work through which balance of features, automation, and time are best for your business. And by the way, I should also add that this isn't new. In fact, you've probably seen something like this in B2C. Shopify is a great example. The issue that we face as manufacturers and distributors is that B2C class platforms like Shopify can't handle B2B business complexities. Now, however, enterprise class software like Elastic Path and others gives you the same quick setup templates and features, but geared more towards B2B. They can support your business needs as your business grows and evolves. All right, that gets us to the end of our demo. Back to you, Rohit.
Hey, thanks, Dylan. I really appreciate it. So hopefully that, if you think about the talk track that Darren and I were talking about and what we're seeing out there in the market, what Dylan was showing was a template called Jumpstart, and that's just one such template. There could be multiple templates. The templates that Dylan was showing were really customer journey focused. There's also templates that can be more self-service focused, where maybe when someone logs in, they're seeing more of their accounting information, previous orders, quick reorder, etc. That's the kind of due diligence we'd have to do together, and you'd want to do to try to figure out what's the profile of your buyer. And then here's a summary. We're trying to just put a quick visual behind the talk track that we had, right? Where in 2 weeks, when you're talking about balancing the features, the automation piece, and the time, in the 2 weeks, if you're leveraging a template that has all the experiences well thought through and a platform that can support those experiences, really then your integrations are what really consume the time in terms of a project. So your catalog, inventory, payments, pricing, taxes, ERP, fulfillment, account loads, among others. So I would recommend that you start thinking about this in that, okay, I need to be able to get money into my account now. So I want to launch with something that's really quick and easy. I can set up in just a couple of minutes online, something like Stripe. I need to be able to pay my taxes, and I don't want to get in trouble with Uncle Sam. So I'm going to use something like an Avalara. And those can be pre-purchased and pre-configured in most platforms because those are so ubiquitous. And then the catalog, the inventory, the pricing, those you're going to upload, maybe on a nightly basis. The ERP, like actually taking the order and the fulfillment, maybe can be sent out via secure email. And then you just manually keystroke those in at the end, which again takes less time of your customer service because they're not on the phone understanding what they want. They're just taking the order and keying it in. And the account loads, again, could be a keyed in entry. So if you have only specific buyers that need access, well, then you just key those guys in and you're good to go. And you can do that in the first 2 weeks. Then maybe you start looking at your roadmap, and at that 6-week piece, all right, I've already got my payments and my taxes, but I really need to get my catalog and my inventory, my pricing going from manual to going to automatic. And again, I know what a pain this is, guys. We've all felt it. But again, if your needs are immediate, you can start looking at it this way. The paradigm shift is that we're not looking at the 1-year deployment. That might still be right for certain people and certain businesses. And for those businesses, I encourage that path. And obviously there's a lot kind of a different discussion there. What we're trying to awaken is this concept that we can launch quickly and fast and be really and ruthlessly prioritize my balance of features, automation, and time. And then on the experience side, so we're talking the back end operational flow. On the experience side, your clients will start with the standard buy flows, maybe some basic account management, the ability to set a quote. So maybe you're not ready to take a buy button. Maybe you just want people to be able to create their quotes and send them off to you. That can all be done within that first 2 weeks. And then you add the rest of those in that 6-week mark or that 10-week mark. And then what you do is the more complex stuff that's going to require back-end ERP integration, which is always the more complex piece, you start layering in at the 10-week mark, like maybe paying invoices for old invoices, for example. Your accounts payable and accounts receivable might be at home, or they may have been furloughed. And so now how are you collecting your payments? Well, maybe you want your invoice payments online. So it could be a really critical thing to be able to load your even old invoices from invoices that weren't even placed online and get those showing online so people can just quickly pay them potentially through your Stripe integration, and you can at least get the money in the account. All right, so that's the summary of what we were talking about earlier. Darren was talking about what I was talking about, and what Dalen hopefully showed as an example. And with that, Darren, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there's any good questions that you want to start taking or I could take, and making sure that if there's anything immediate that people have, we can start answering them.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we've heard a lot of the last couple of weeks with some of the prospective customers that we've been talking to, and some of our existing customers even that may have not done everything that they have wanted to. A big takeaway, I think, Rod, from what you're sharing and what we saw was that a lot of the problems or pain points that are happening right now are use cases that you need to figure out how to serve. It sounds like you can really step into those in a very purposeful way versus having to really boil the ocean, take on a big program, a project kind of mindset, and just start going and solving those. And one of those that stood out that I've seen questions on both here in this webinar as well as prior is that quick order form. So as an example, so I like that you showed that, because whether you're a distributor who may actually not be doing a lot of e-commerce yet and be doing a lot of your orders traditionally with sales forces over the phone, or the sales force is entering it into an ERP system, or the manufacturer that hasn't as well and is traditionally sold through the channel, that's the way it looks like you could step into just very fast making something available for sale without even having to do a lot of work to the website, versus like launching a whole storefront. So I think that's pretty novel.
It's spot on, D. And I don't know if you noticed that we've seen this a lot, and you're right. I'm feeling the same questions as you are from our clients, in that on that page that Dalen was showing, and she was keying it in, there was also an Excel upload. So sometimes right now we've got clients that are emailing orders, right? We've gone backwards a little bit. And it's like, here's my spreadsheet, I need this stuff. Now they should be able to just go online and hit, upload the Excel file. And it's just removing points of friction. So again, when we define the definition of success as meeting our clients' needs, that could be meeting the needs of our clients. Like, all right, you don't want to wait on hold. No one's responding to email, or it's taking too long to respond to email. They're getting this immediate gratification feedback. All right, I got my order in. I've got my receipt. I see a quote. Someone's taking care of this.
So we have another question on, the reality of many cases, retailers and also distributors that have branch facilities and physical footprints that folks have gone into in the past to make purchases, are having to have these closed, and even some of the online is impacted. So, some top priorities that folks could work on that maybe have a more mature e-commerce business. I'm going to kick it off with 5 actually versus 3, and then Rod, I'll ask for the ones that you think are top priority, or what you're hearing from some of Object Edge's clients. So first and foremost, I think right now, more important than ever is having inventory visibility, having that stock visibility, right? So finding the source of that data and getting that data exposed onto your website. And again, going to the kind of mantra here is that many of these problems can be solved now much easier than they could even a couple years ago. There's just some great new patterns in how we set these things up, how we do this work. There's a lot of folks that can get that problem solved, and not as a large a project as it might have been in the past. But that's getting that inventory availability into not only the product detail page, where it's obviously going to be very important, but one of the strong demands I've seen in many places, both in some of the online communities I participate in, and just dialogue with other folks in the industry, is also adding it to search and your category pages. So when you are using facets, we've spent a lot of time in these years making our faceted navigation, faceted search, those little pick lists on the side where you can say, hey, just show me the things that have top ratings, or show me things from a particular manufacturer that have a particular feature. The number one sought out feature right now from the buyer side, whether that's a consumer or business, is, can you just show me the items that are actually in stock? Because right now I don't have time to go through everything else. The second that I would focus in on is making any improvements you can to your order status. And this, I think, comes in 2 parts. One is making sure that you are statusing that order as much as possible. So it might be that you've set up your order status and you've in the past only had a few different categories, and they might be really broad. And inside those statuses, there actually was a lot more going on behind the scenes within your company, but you didn't necessarily broadcast that out to the account pages, to the order history pages for those customers. But that's, again, one where in the challenging times like this, where we have this incredible velocity and need on the e-commerce side, putting that status out there with more detail is going to allow you to deflect a lot more calls into your customer support center, your call centers, or even to your sales force that now might be trying to facilitate another sale, but they're getting bombarded by customers going, just where's my order? What's going on, right? So rethink what you're doing for statuses, and if you can get more statuses out there, you're going to really alleviate some pain that your customers have. The third one would be rethinking cancel orders. So many of us that have gotten to that more sophisticated end of the spectrum here, this journey that Rohit outlined, where you do have the integration with your e-commerce system to your ERP, we traditionally have not allowed a lot of cancel orders, and a lot of it's because of the technology limitations. Once that order's left the e-commerce system, it gets into the ERP system, and it's hard to kind of claw that order back from the ERP system once it's down there. But this is one where, again, I would put a team on it, be challenging all of the past thinking, challenging what you might have thought was possible and not possible, and reevaluate that, because if you can get the cancel order, you're going to minimize some costs. So you have folks right now buying, and something may happen. You may not be fulfilling that order fast enough. They may need to change and move on to something else. What you don't want to do is be incurring a great deal of additional costs later, when you've already fulfilled the product, you've paid for shipping, you've gotten it to that business address, and then they're canceling it and returning it to you. And what you would find is, in many cases, they're saying, hey, I would have done this earlier, but you didn't enable me to. You didn't give me that option. So I had to just wait till I got it to be able to return it. So rethink that, what you're doing with cancellations, and consider how you might be able to bring that up earlier in the relationship. Fourth item I have is quick checkout. So I love that the quick order was shown, but also this is a time when, going back to that inventory challenge, what a lot of folks are struggling with online on the buy side, your end shopper, is adding things to their basket, and then getting to checkout, and then there's that final check on inventory and stock availability, and it's all gone, right? And so they're not even able to finish checkout. And in absence of all of us being able to quickly implement Ticketmaster style holds of inventory, which doesn't necessarily work great in commerce anyways, because most of us use our baskets and shopping carts online as temporary staging areas. You want to figure out a way to accelerate that checkout as much as possible. So, the patent and legal license holder of One Click, the great Amazon, no longer has that patent. You don't have to worry about One Click. You can actually set up, single page, authenticate that user if you know who they are, and just get that checkout as fast as possible. So work through your checkout and figure out where you can make some improvements. And then finally, my fifth item to Pauline's question would be punch out. Also, this is a time when you may be manufacturing a new product that you haven't in the past, but the market is new to you and you're trying to figure out how to get that product into that market. Or you may have some products that are more relevant, or you may be a distributor that has a number of products that have relevancy in different places, but you're just not in those places. So think about how you can get punch out set up real quickly. And that may be one of your 2-week priorities if you're a mature business, and getting into some of those other marketplaces to move some of that inventory we're all desperately looking for. So those are my top 5 recommendations to Pauline's questions. Ro, what are yours?
No, that's a great list, man. The only one I would add from the standpoint of it's not a feature but a priority would be look to build emotional connections with your customer right now. It's our biggest differentiator from the transactional / convenience aspects of dealing with awesome retailers like Amazon. It's that emotional connection where people want to work with us because there's people behind the brand. I go twice a week right now and support my local baker, and I buy a croissant, even though maybe I'm just sitting at home all day and I shouldn't be eating baked croissants, but I still go and I buy those croissants because they need that help right now. We are ordering food maybe once or twice a week so we can help our local restaurants. We're not saying it's charity. What we're saying is there's emotional connections that we've already built with certain brands, and we want to work with them through these times. Look to build emotional connections, whether it's phone calls think out of the box. If you've got doing that segmentation and you can figure out who your top 50 clients are that spend with you, call them. Have a phone call with them. Tell them how much you appreciate them. There's these things that we can do that are really low fidelity, but really make a difference because it's still human to human. So that would be my biggest thing, is building those emotional connections. If you already have an e-commerce site and you're looking at not launching a new feature, but maybe improving, the big thing, especially if you're a manufacturer and distributor, is see if you can improve your search, right? Searches can be now swapped in and out. At the end of the day, a great search engine does a lot to hide bad taxonomy and poor content, which almost all manufacturers and distributors, we're all guilty of it, because most of our data is sitting in an ERP and we're relying on Paul or Jane or Alex to go have that conversation and explain our products. So we don't always have the richest product information readily available or correctly indexed. Today, there's a lot of great search out there that can help you kind of hide that bad information. Look, like I said, you're deferring your costs. You're not replacing them or eliminating them. Eventually, you are going to need to invest in your taxonomy and your content, but I would recommend working on that search. And I'm just going to mention what a couple of retailers have told me over the last week. And unfortunately, our retailer customers span the gamut. Some have furloughed and closed off all their retail stores because they're not considered essential. Some have kept them open, but are maybe doing curbside. And so this concept of buy online and pick up in store, ironically, is something that if you don't have it right now, might be something that you want to be looking at. Where again, it's a great way of building that emotional connection. But we've got a retailer in Canada that this is being now fast forwarded, because there seems to be this feeling, the empirical evidence is they're calling, but they don't want to go inside the store right now, right? They're worried about interacting. But they still need the product, right? And potentially, if you don't have the fulfillment capability, or it's a bigger product that's not very shippable, but you've got local distribution centers, whether they be stores, if you're a retailer, or local warehouses, where people can actually just go and pick it up and you do curbside. So I think it's time to think outside the box. It's time to get nitty gritty, but that's where I would focus: emotional connection, search, and BOPIS.
I think that's great advice, Rohit. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to those that are tuning in at some later point, as you may have been juggling many random tasks and assignments. I think we got a lot of great ideas here, and most importantly, hopefully your big takeaway is that you can step into solving some of these business problems really quickly. A lot of new techniques and technologies to support that. And feel free to reach out to us following this to inquire more, or see how we can figure out how to help you solve some of those. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dalen, for the wonderful demonstration, and Shannon for your help moderating, kicking us off today.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the webinar. We appreciate your time again today. Thank you.